Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to yet another episode of New York Red Bulls Discussion Group, the podcast. I'm Garry Redmond, and welcome to our 150th episode. So, although it's a little run in the mill, but hey, it is a lot to celebrate about. Unfortunately, there's not too much to celebrate because what happened over the West Coast, and we're going to talk about that in length with my two wonderful co-hosts, Miguel Nunez, and of course, Lanre Bad Mustards right now tuning his throat to get ready for some serious ranting. San Jose Earthquakes versus the New York Red Bulls. And of course, from there, they went east, and they're going to be hanging out in the beautiful city of Chester, right next to the Commodore Bridge. And this is where Philadelphia Union New York Red Bulls will be playing two games. One of them is much more in importance, and that is a live and die match with the U.S. Open Cup quarterfinal match. And then, of course, there is a regular season match on Saturday. Now, Gotham FC, of course, didn't play because of what's going on internationally, but New York Red Bulls too did, and unfortunately, they did not do so well against their team at the We're going to talk about that in length. And then, whoopsie, sorry. There you go. And then what we're going to do is basically talk about the U.S. Open Gold Cup. Oh, okay. We got a problem here. Better. All right, Gold Cup. And then, of course, we're going to what was supposed to happen. And, of course, what did not happen, of course, on that particular match. So, you can catch, as you can see, things happen live. Well, you can catch the live, episode on our YouTube channel, on X, of course, which is going to happen within an hour after that. And, of course, Spotify.com, which has been our home from this very simple beginning. And all of our shows are uploaded the very next day for your listening and viewing pleasure. And, of course, as always, if you have any questions or comments about the show, about why my light keep falling, then please email us by all means. We have an email address at rbdgthepodcast@gmail.com. That is rbdgthepodcast@gmail.com. So, lots to talk about, of course, as far as we got our international footy, which did not do very well, of course, for our Stars and Stripes. Locally, we got a point on the road. Didn't get a win, but a point nevertheless. And, of course, naturally, the young guns, they fall at the campus. So we're going to discuss all about that. There's that light again. And, of course, with my two co-hosts, of course, Lanre Batmus and Miguel Nunez. Man, I am really having a bad day. It's official. Okay, I'm really having a bad day. I'm just basically... Huh?
Forward time, as they say across the pond.
Yeah. That's when you know. I mean, that's when you know when you're really having, a rough day. Matthew, good evening. Of course, two lousy results between club and country. Yeah, we got technical issues, but you know what? We're pros. We find our way right through it and keep on going. So, yeah, a lot of his wife's trying to kill him. Yeah, but let's start with what happened over in the West Coast, right? Our last win on the road, right, boys, was versus DC United, which I was present at that time. And they haven't won a road. They haven't got a point on the road. Well, they did, as a matter of fact. They got a couple of points on the road, but they haven't got a win since. Okay. If you're the fan of this team, I'm going to start with you, Lanre. Is this a concern to you or not much of a big deal?
It's kind of a concern that we couldn't beat a team as San Jose have been basically the entirety of the last decade. That's a team we normally take care of no matter what form we're in. And yet,
they're a good team this year, though. I mean, they're not some scrubs. I mean, it's not like back in the day where, even in the Goonies era, we had problems with those dudes. Okay.
I see now they're six. My fault. I'm so used to them not being good at all that when they actually are in the playoff, it's really shocking.
Okay.
I got no beef with the Earthquakes. I have great respect for them and their culture and what they've done for this league and the state of soccer in America. But I don't know. It's a team that we're used to kind of taking care of. We're used to kind of handling business again, and to go in their house, be a goal up, be a man up, and then be a man up after conceding the equalizer and just not finishing the job. It's definitely not a good feeling. I think it's definitely a cause for concern. I'm also more concerned about where the heck is Timo Werner? Why did that deal just fall apart?
Well, they're still negotiating, but that's why we brought Anthony in tonight. He's going to basically give us a heads up and an update of what's going on right now. There's a $5 million difference on the table between club and player. I don't know why that is, but you know what they say during silly season. First, of course, you get the interview, and after you get the interview, then you call the brass tacks, and then you pretty much talk about, okay, how much is this person going to want? Miguel, pluses and minuses for you before we get to the match recap. Plus and minus for you on the match on Saturday.
Well, you know what? We should have taken 3 points, Garry. Okay, that's the big negative there. We traveled to the West Coast. San Jose didn't look to be world beaters. Okay.
Okay.
Emil scores that goal, Lasso. Okay, and then you know what? They didn't even score a goal. We scored a goal for them. That's the unlucky part. Okay, that's the unlucky part. And you know what? Being down, they went down a man, and we still couldn't take care of them. We might want to discuss that offside call.
Yeah, we will.
You know, if Choupo-Moting doesn't play, like try to make a play on the ball, then it's Nealis scoring that goal and we win. But he went for it, and it totally went over his head. But I guess he was deemed to have tried to play. I've seen this called before. Okay,
we all have multiple times. Multiple times.
Guy's offside. If he doesn't try to play the goal, if he doesn't try to play the ball,
right.
The goal scored by his teammate, it's a good goal. But since the guy tries to play the ball
at the same time that the other person tries to play the ball, right?
Offside, you know what? Just unlucky, was an opportunity missed. We should have had 2 more points, and we wound up with 1. But you know what? If you ask people, would they take 1 point on the road? Usually they'll say, "Yeah, I'll take 1 point."
I was going to ask you that. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I was going to ask you both. Okay. Considering just how good. Okay. I'm not going to say allegedly. They're in a higher position than we are. Considering how good this team is, a point on the road, is it fair? Or I know it was a missed opportunity. We had an opportunity. They had an opportunity to just bag 3 points and get out of Dodge, right, guys?
Yeah,
but
right.
But do you see this really as a missed opportunity, or there's still some work to do? Miguel,
it was a missed opportunity, because those 2 points lost could come in handy.
It could come back to hurt them.
Look, it could have, as far as placing,
Yeah, I mean, if any, I agree with you. I agree with you. If you take a good look at the Eastern Conference, it's tight, bro. Yeah. I mean, every point matters. So,
there you go.
Lanre, I mean, you said it right off the bat. Missed opportunity, to at least climb the table or to separate yourself from the dudes at the bottom. Because guess what? Those schedules for those squads, it gets easier on those guys. So,
harder for us, right?
Right.
The thing is, it's definitely a missed opportunity. We had a chance to leapfrog Inter Miami this week. I know there's a caveat. They got 4 games in hand. Yada yada. Stupid unbalanced schedule. Weird ass league, whatever. The fact of the matter is, we had a chance to kind of leapfrog, get ourselves into a better position, at least like 6th place instead of 8th, where we are right now. My concern is that it's well past the halfway point of the season now, and we still only have one win on the road, and that was in DC. Yeah, it feels good to be DC as always, but some of the draws we've had should have been wins. Some of the losses we've had definitely should have been at least draws. Look, I don't think.
Yeah, another match where they had the lead and blow it. Right, and I can see where the concern is.
Yeah, we've been excellent on. We've been excellent at home. We've been excellent defending our fortress, RBA. I will always call it RBA. I will never call it a sport. No way. That's one of the only stadium names, the only dead names I find, and I will never call it SIS.
Watch
No
this.
way.
We're gonna have a representative. We're gonna have a representative from Sports Illustrated say, "Hey boys, how much money you want for us to mention?" No. Anyway,
I mean, like we've been defending the fortress really well. We just gotta get our dues kicking on the road.
all right. Speaking of the match recap, of course, naturally the Red Bulls went west to. They have one more West Coast trip, and that would be Portland. But the game pretty much started pedestrian, and then things got crazy.
Horrific flooding in the Texas Hill Country, the postponement of the Austin LAFC game. Austin will be traveling to San Jose on Tuesday night for the Open Cup quarterfinal, where they will face the Quakes. So our thoughts on the minds of those affected down in Texas. But here, Ongo just on the tardiness arriving. Costa. Oh, this is LaRue. LaRue! Well, if you saw the goal in the Cali Classico at Stanford Stadium, he's capable of great things.
That's right, really good footwork here. In and out, to the left, back to the right. Look at the direction of this. Direction is perfect, just a little bit too high. But this is a center midfielder with a bit of
strengthen again in the secondary window. But here's Forsberg in the pocket. Emil Forsberg rolling along. Forsberg and Danielle. Another highlight reel save to his arsenal. And it comes early on the first big chance for the Red Bulls. Gets his head to it, but wide.
And here is the play. He had Wiki Carmona. Probably should have passed, actually. It's a great fingertip save. Danielle, he's not let down at all this season. Forsberg trying to do it all by himself. And there, Sofo and Duncan got to do better to create a chance.
Stroud picks out Forsberg, still motoring on. Forsberg!
How has he kept control of that ball? Is he going left or right here? Duan Jones is unsure.
It's Espinosa. Arango down and shoved out of there. Right on the near post by Coronel.
Oh, he's dangerous from corners, wide set pieces. Thought Coronel might. I think the post was in the way for him.
Well, that was your last season in New York. Here's stepping forward. What a win, Muni. Martinez. Arango! Fires it into the crosshairs right at Coronel.
Yeah, look, there's the step from Mooney. Look at the time and space. Martinez doesn't need to pass it yet.
For Arango. What a move, Arango! Curls to the outside.
They just needed one more runner there. Once Arango gets it, it's a lot to do to beat your man and score from this far. It's always bending away that strike.
Red Bulls in look of a turnover so they can get out in a track meet. Instead, Rodriguez, Martinez, Harks,
great ball.
On over for Costa. With one road win.
Wow.
Espinosa is running this down. Espinosa! Costa!
And then a great ball over the top to Espinosa. And Vitor Costa makes up for it there.
Sloppy going into that. Step quick, and then a 50-50 that ends up
play on
with Jones taking in a second yellow. And he's been sent off. Wondered on the arrival of this challenge.
And there he's steaming in. Oh, it's a big collision with Stroud. That just doesn't look clean at all.
Oh, that ball is in, but the flag is up. Nealis has the finger, the Mutombo wave. Appear to be in an offside position.
He is onside, Sean Nealis.
But are they going to deem Choupo-Moting leaping active in the play as a distraction? Now a set-piece threat for San Jose. Down a player, Espinosa. Arango Rodriguez, the header. It's a soft one. Cornell.
And the Giants in there. There's a lot of big men for both teams in the box there. There is the header from Rodriguez. When is
On cue, those seconds evaporate.
Someone should be saying that on the pitch.
A stalemate in San Jose.
And of course, you folks all see the final score. New York Red Bulls 1, San Jose Earthquakes 1. Basically, Forsberg, that was his 7th goal of the season, his 16th of his career. Forsberg has tallied a goal in back-to-back matches and is now 6 goal contributions with 4 matches against Western Conference opponents this season. So he's heating up against Western Conference foes. Let's see how he does against Eastern Conference, where we're definitely going to need him. He's now tied for 5th place in franchise history with Sasha Kleiston, as you mentioned, Mike Grella, and Eddie Gavin for most goals scored by a midfielder with 16. Duncan has tallied his 4th MLS assist of the season. That's his 20th of his career. The Brooklyn, New York native has tallied all 3 assists against basically his last MLS appearances. Stroud, he also recorded his 3rd MLS assist of the season and his very first since March 29th against the New England Revolution. Sean Nealis made his 176th career appearance. Man's been a mainstay for this club. Across all competitions, has ranked him in 2nd place in franchise history by a defender passing guess who? Guess who, guys?
By a defender?
By a defender.
No idea.
Last chance. Guess
Mike
who?
Becky.
Huh?
Mike Becky.
Nope.
Yeah.
No, unfortunately, he's behind Mike Pecky. He was passed, but he passed Aaron Long.
Right.
Yeah. So right now, you take a look at the, of the list. It's Mike Pecky, followed by, of course, Sean Nealis, and then finally Aaron Long. The Red Bulls extended their unbeaten streak to 6 matches against San Jose. So when it's all said and done, the Red Bulls are now done and dusted, okay, with San Jose, and then they move back east in Chester, Pennsylvania. First order of business, okay, before we go into the break, is dealing with them a U.S. Open Cup. Now, on the road, they've been not that great. They're facing a team basically they haven't really beaten in 6 years. They haven't beaten this team in Chester since 2019. In the regular season match since 2018. Tall order, or they might be beatable this time around? What's your thoughts on this, Lanre?
Well, I mean, they are 10 points ahead of us on the table right now in the league. Normally going to Philly, normally playing Philly, trying to beat them is a tall order. Going there to Chester, down to Chester to try to beat them even more so. But I mean, I think this team can do it. They just stay focused. They limit their silly mistakes on the back, silly mistakes in the midfield. I think it's doable, but yeah, it's still a tall order. I mean, if we couldn't beat them last year at all, and it's the year where they didn't even make the playoffs, it's just like I feel like we get the yips with the team. I don't know why. It's just like get a mental block every time we play the team, whether it's here or down there. You just got to get over them. And Wednesday would be an amazing opportunity to finally get rid of those yips.
Well, I mean, those yips would definitely, you're dealing with a team that took the Red Bull style and damn near perfected it. Okay, so you're talking about 2 squads, with the same identity. Okay, that gender pressing and all that. And said, okay, we can definitely do better. I mean, one of the things that kill me is like, how do you allow it? I mean, well, teams are always going to copycat, right? No matter what they're going to do. It's in a sport, if they're going to, if they can find a way to beat you, they'll use it, right? But to be able, Miguel, to use that style, imagine a team, lower than you, take on Barcelona and play that tiki-taka style and beat Barcelona to death. Would you find that insulting and shocking?
Yeah, I would. Because we've been in the last 10 years that team using that style. Okay, and now I think Philadelphia has perfected it, as I think Lanre said it right now. So I feel that it would be a tall order for our team to go down there and beat the Philadelphia Union at their house.
Okay? And they made that place a fortress. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and they were a much better team than us last year. They're a better team than us this year. The standings do not lie. Okay,
they didn't make the playoffs last year though.
Yeah, but I still think they were a better team last year than us. Okay,
probably not wrong.
Really?
Wrong, to be honest.
I mean, you can analyze the roster, okay, and I think they have a better team, okay.
Well,
but let me just say, Garry, that it would be a tall order for us to beat them. But I just hope they prove me wrong, please, because I would like our team to advance in this competition.
Nick is saying that the Union, they play their games pretty tight, okay, but they're not an elite scoring team.
Okay.
And when you look at their squad, this is the thing that kills me about our fan base. You hear big names thrown about like Timo and all the other guys, and they think, okay, instant championship. But when you look at the Union have been winning games with just good, solid players. Okay, none of those guys you see, that leaps out at you and you want to make a television deal in Madison Avenue. None of those guys, right? I'm not saying that they're the bad-looking ballers, but they're ballers, okay? And, the thing is, and I agree with Lisa, and this is what the coach said during our media availability, is that as long as they play a good, clean, tight game and none of the stupid mistakes that they normally make against this squad, they got a chance to beat them. But that's just the thing about this team. They have a propensity to play against teams lower them in the standings, and for some reason they cough this up, But against good teams, they tend to. I don't want to able to use this word against them, choke. I just don't. I just don't like the fact that you can't handle Philly, and even when they're not an elite team, they beat you like one. And it goes by what I'm saying about, how I judge championship teams. Teams win, teams are supposed to win at home. Great teams win, period. And they've been winning, fellas. Like you said, Miguel, the standings don't lie. They're up there. Yeah. Okay? They're up there. We're swimming around in 8th place at the moment. So while the Red Bulls can remain pedestrian as far as the standings are concerned, and they wind up in the playoffs, great. But something about this team, and I don't know. I want this is also going to the folks in our audience, and ask a question: is it me, or is this squad somewhat turns on the juice during playoff games? I mean, during the regular season, they are who they are. Okay, never going to change that. Something that that Schwartz brought out, okay? He said, this is it's a new competition. We're only focusing on this game and this game alone. They're not worrying about Philly Saturday. They ain't worried about those guys on Saturday. They got their minds primed for this match, okay? We know how we know how these guys play because we've seen it last year, right, Miguel? A team came out of nowhere and start knocking out dudes on the road just to get to the final. And there was one game too far. But this team, right, with him on the at the helm, has a tendency to just turn things out. Does that give you a little bit of a little bit of a little bit of steam going going into this match that they can able to turn this on the dime?
No, it doesn't give me.
Why? Okay, tell me why.
I tell you what, because right now we're not in the playoffs, Gary. Okay.
Okay. No, we're not.
This is the U.S. Open Cup. I don't know that a lot of these guys take this. Well, I know that these guys are not going to be taken as serious as if they just made the playoffs and they were about to go, or they needed to go on a run, Gary. Okay,
right.
As we did versus Columbus, and then NYCFC. Okay, the bad thing is it's like a playoff game last year that, because we had to go on the road for most of that, except one at home against, what was it, Columbus?
One.
Yeah, so Garry, we're not winning. Okay, that's my.
I mean, I'm in the mindset that this crew, given, not exactly the motivation, because you don't need a lot of motivation to take on Philly. Y'all sick of them. They're sick of you. Okay, they not so much as them. There's a lot of hatred that there is with DC and NYCFC, but they're annoying. Okay, they're annoying to the fact that we hate losing to these guys all the time. It's every single time. Not saying that basically that we're better than them or whatever the case may be. Hell, Philly's a better side than us. But in spite of that, other teams have shown the way that if you play these guys tight and keep mistake-free football, you got a chance. You got a chance to beat these guys. And I dare say it, Lanre, and this is the question I have for you. Do the Red Bulls have to play perfect football in order to get past them?
Close to it. Yeah.
Close to it?
Because we have to limit, because we're so prone to playing, to having all these sloppy, dumb, silly mistakes, and a team like Philly especially is gonna take advantage of that. We've seen them. I don't know how many consecutive meetings we've had against them now. We make one stupid mistake, one dumb mistake passing it out of the back, miscommunication at the back or in the midfield, turn the ball over, they go down, boom, they score. Because the pressing just hounds us. The Gegen pressing, their bastardized version of Gegen pressing, which they copied from us, by the way.
That's the thing. That's the thing we'll never get over, right? That is the absolute thing we will never get over. The fact that they're using our style and and basically perfecting it, and for all the intents and purposes, right? We talk about Philly, so we talk about DC and United, of course. We talk about NYCFC. We don't talk about Philly that much, but then again, there they are in Open Cup competition, gentlemen. They are 2 wins, 3 losses, against them. So they now meet for the 4th time. Sixth time in this competition. So it can go either way. However, the good news is Red Bull is sending busloads of fans down there, so they're going to be with their fans there tonight. So there will be a patchwork of red, despite the fact that it's going to be surrounded by sea blue. The only thing I hate about Subaru Park, terrific venue. It is. This is a terrific venue. Been there multiple times. The only thing I don't like is that they put the visiting supporters just right next to the home supporters. It's almost like you were you want a fight, and there have been some incidents. One of my good friends is an NYCFC supporter. A fight that broke out between those 2 guys because they were so damn close. But I've said that they should be literally the opposite end, but unfortunately, one of the union people would tell me, I asked them, why didn't you put these guys in the opposite end? And they said that the season ticket holders, they have deals usually for youth groups and stuff like that, so they didn't want to put them right next to the supporters. Kind of makes sense in a bit, This Lisa's telling me if we play Philly in the playoffs or run might have likely been ended. We never do well in Chester. You haven't done well in Chester in 6 years. So,
I don't know. I mean, you want to know one thing? I think if
haven't done well in Chester since 2018.
There's something I got to say about that. There's something I got to say about that really quick. Had we not blown that 3-1 lead in the 2019 playoffs against them, I think we likely would have been talking about a very different story in recent times against the Philadelphia Union.
I agree.
Blowing that 3-1 lead to lose 4-3 in extra time in the first round in the 2019 MLS Cup playoffs,
hurt. That hurt.
That collapsed. Everything just collapsed against them.
And that was the last time. You saw Armas as the head coach of the Red Bulls. I interviewed him. The man, he basically tried to, it was emotional. Trying to get those guys, up for the game. And then, we lost our best attacking midfielder. We lost our best defensive midfielder. And then it was Dunsky. That's it. Philly is a tough, physical, rough house team, okay? They have no trouble getting up there to beat people down. And you can't be, Glenn's goal. That was the one that killed, that was the one that killed us, That stung so
you're
much.
Talking about 2021?
Yeah, Jacob Glensness. That one. I was there for that one.
Yeah, 2021. That sucked. That was horrible. I was there for that. I almost shed tears. I saw grown men around me shedding tears. I almost shed tears myself.
That one hurt. Horrible. Ouch.
Horrible.
So, yeah, it's been a perpetual house of horrors. But you know what, fellas? Miguel, Lanre, I distinctly remember Philly coming in last year and killing our home undefeated streak
on my birthday. Damn it!
Right? Wouldn't it be nice if the tables were turned for this particular match? And I'm not saying it could happen. I'm not saying it will happen. We're going to talk about predictions at the end of our show. But wouldn't it be nice, cool kids, if revenge would be served cold? Basically, cold. Against Philly, but we'll see what happens from there. We're going to take ourselves a 30-second break. There were some games that happened in week 22 of Major League Soccer. When we return, Anthony Merced will continue the on-again, off-again, on-again story, of course, of Timo Werner. And, oh, by the way, while all this was going on, we happened to sign a Swedish midfielder. More of that when we return. See you in 30. Anthony Merced joins us now, and of course with it was a little late, and the reason why he was a little late because him and his wonderful family was visiting the Emerald Isle over in Europe. It was in Ireland, and they really had a grand time. I saw pictures of the young kid, munching on anything in sight. Does this kid ever not be hungry?
They each out of house and home. That's how it works.
I'm like, every time I see this poor kid, handsome lad, good lad, but every time I see this guy, he's got food in his face.
He eats more than the adults do in this house. But hold on, before we get started with all the crazy rumors,
go.
I have to ask you guys this question because I was pulling my hair out, as you can tell.
You got hair? Oh, by the way, your haircut looks good. By the way,
thank you very much. What exactly does Philly do better than Red Bull? Like, give me something, because
other than beat us every damn time we walk in that place.
Who cares? Who cares? Let's be real here. They don't have any trophies, so I guess they're kind of like Red Bull.
They got the shield. One.
He's choking them on
so did Red Bull. So okay. But they don't have a 15-year streak of making the playoffs. They have just as much disappointment, probably worse so. So, okay, they're they're a little bit better right now. I mean, but like, what is this like? They perfected nothing of what Red Bull has done so far. They just do it right now. That's about it. But what do they do better?
Well, if you got a 6-year winning streak against one particular club, I'm sure you're doing something right. But that's basically it.
They do. I mean, last year they didn't make the playoffs. You know, like, so
dude, I didn't call these guys. I didn't refer to these guys as the second coming of Real Madrid. Let's just calm that down.
They got an executive from Salzburg that had the blueprint of the blueprint. Pretty much.
And then use it to beat the living crap out this team whenever they get a chance. I mean, at some point, something has got to give.
Hey, but New England does the same thing.
Yeah, they do, but less so. I mean, I think fans have just about had enough of Philadelphia. I mean, the thing that kills me about them, right, because this is going to basically happen on match day 23. This is taking place naturally on Saturday. We're not going to worry about that. But basically, if you take a look at it head-to-head, all-time regular season, 14, 14, and 9. This is what Anthony was getting at. They're pretty close. But at Chester, 6, 14, and 4. This is going to be their 46th, not 46th, third. And their last win was basically in that building, was basically in 2018. So to answer your question, Anthony, it's not what they've done any better than Red Bull, but it seems that there's a lot of sustained success against them. It's almost like they take that game and they take that match and they take it personally. They say, you know what? Not only are we going to take your style, but we're going to beat you with it and show you what a real club is, even though they haven't been very successful themselves. But if you ask a lot of Red Bull fans, Miguel, Lanre, I'm sure you agree with me, they're sick at Philly. They really are. They're sick of Philly. They really are. And I was like, you know what? Enough about this already. I mean, we write about the Red Bulls. We write about NYCFC. And even NYCFC hasn't had this much of a length of success against them, against the Red Bulls. So it's kind of crazy how out of all the squads that Red Bull will probably have trouble with, this one. And when kickoff starts on Wednesday night, a lot of dudes are going to be holding their breath and waiting for, the eventual mistake. Is that? And I just asked the guys earlier before the break. Is it going to take perfect football to beat Philadelphia, in your opinion?
No. I just think it's one of the things that Red Bull has not done well this year is high percentage conversion of other teams' mistakes. The moments have been there. They just haven't been able to haven't been able to take advantage of it.
My goodness, Garry, what is going on there?
What did you do? Why
I don't know.
What happened?
I mean, it would take until the 150th episode for this to happen a couple of times, but
they just need to convert those moments. They're there. I can't remember who I spoke to. This must have been a few months ago. I think I spoke to Peter Stroud about this, where he said you can't play a perfect game. It's impossible. But you have to take advantage of those moments, and you have to minimize the percentage chance the other way around. And unfortunately, this year, what we've seen Red Bull, particularly on the road, because 6 of their 7 losses have come on the road, is those moments get away from them. And I think they need to just take advantage. I mean, it's a bit of bad luck. It's a bit of bad placement. But, they haven't played poorly in a lot of there's probably 3 or 4 where they were like, yeah, they got owned. But like, for instance, the game, the most recent draws, they played well. It just hasn't gone their way.
Yeah. Well, Sandro talked about stupid mistakes and avoiding those stupid mistakes. One of the things that make me worry about this, about this.
Oh my God! What?
Hold on.
What?
Tremendous.
What is going on here?
Just absolutely tremendous. Okay.
Trophy beef.
I got a light that hates me now, right? What's it now? That's like 6 now? Wait for the 7th. Then
just live in darkness afterwards.
Yeah. But it just, how should I put this? Miguel, you talked about how how the Red Bulls have this ridiculous propensity to sometimes not raise, themselves up to the bar. Is this one of those? Is this one of those matches that actually do something like that? Do they have the propensity? Do they have enough to go further than they're supposed? Because one thing about this team that we've seen throughout these, ever since Sandro came on board, right? They seem to do very well in competitions like this. And they okay, we're done here.
Just
All right.
live in the underlit world where you look like you're in a 1970s horror film.
All right, we're done here. That's better. We're gonna go. We're gonna go to secondary light. There we go. Much better. So,
Gary, I think this is, what I haven't liked is that the teams that they're supposed to be, like there's been times where, like, let's say the Chicago Fire is crap, then they'll come into Red Bull Arena and beat us. Those are the teams where for whatever reason they play down to their level. Okay, hopefully with this team, them being so far above us in the standings, they're gonna raise their level for this game. Okay, and it is one game. It's a knockout game. Let's say they're able to keep them in check as far as their scoring opportunities. Let's take it to penalties, man. I'll take that.
All right.
That's it.
Speaking of which, Miguel.
Listen,
speaking of, go ahead.
Once we get Timo Werner, okay.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a second.
playoffs, destruction.
Why are we hoping? Why are we
Have
hoping
you watched
for
the
this guy?
Bundesliga at all?
Why are we hoping for this guy? Lanre, I mean, I'm sure you scanned over the Philadelphia Union roster more than once before we came on air. There's a couple of guys out there, one in particular that scares the daylights out of me. And he's been playing lights out soccer since he showed up.
Ty Baribo.
Oh yeah,
the Israeli striker. Yeah. This dude's a monster. Like there's no two ways around it. He scored. I think he scored the opener against us at the stadium last year. At Red Bull Arena last year. He's having a career year so far. 13 goals in 17 appearances. Overall, 16 appearances in the league. He by himself is definitely the reason that Philadelphia is third in the table right now in the Eastern Conference, especially since the loss of Daniel Gajdag, since they let him go. Oh wait, no, we still have him. Oh no, he's on Columbus.
He's on Columbus and hasn't been featured ever since he showed up. I mean, he showed up. He played a couple of games, but not much else. He's been basically coming off the bench. He's he's a handful, and that has me worried, Miguel, Anthony. Their defense is not that. Our defense is great, but only when they're only when they want to. The good news is Francis Westfield, Ian Glavanovic, Jesus Bueno, and Michael Ure. They're injured. They're not going to be featured in the game. Usually they play for and they usually hurt the Red Bulls, but they're not going to be around for that game. So that there's that needle that's bending ever so slightly over to the Red Bulls, but they have a good. My thing is, if you get able to keep Thiago quiet as much as you can, Anthony, they got a shot. I mean, this is, you're talking about one player whose offense they go through, but they got a bunch of guys that can actually do some damage as well.
Yeah, but just remember, when you play the style that they play, that leaves you open to counter-attacking football. And one thing that Red Bull's very good at this year is being able to hold the ball up and distribute very well. So I wouldn't be surprised if that high line comes back to haunt Philly in this game. But again, this is the first time they played each other this year, so we'll see what that looks like and how the lineups respond, not just in this game, but then also in the game on Saturday, which is a whole other story.
Yeah, Bruno Demani, by the way, he's got about 3 goals on him. He's another striker that can actually do some damage. They have weapons. Okay, that makes no difference about that. They definitely have weapons. But for the Red Bulls,
Uruguayan international too, Damiani.
Excuse me?
Uruguayan international too, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
he could definitely
the one Uruguayan we actually lose. They actually
who cares about South American soccer?
So that's about it.
That's
Now,
really good, Anthony.
Nobody good ever came out of South America.
okay, that's true. Now, of course, naturally, transfer season has begun. It hasn't even begun yet, but the Red Bulls were pretty much very active. They grabbed some dude out of the blue. I mean, and they got a Swedish midfielder. Let me get his name here for just 1 second. Yes, sir, Bregren. Okay. Just how good is he? Because I've been hearing a lot of stuff from this dude. I mean, fans, their tongues have been wagging left and right. Is he an upgrade or just the same for the dearly departed Felipe Carballo? We'll start there.
That's a really good question. I mean, we won't know that until he starts playing. The one thing I like to tell people is you can do all kinds of stuff in Europe, but coming here to MLS things don't always translate exactly. The one thing I will say is there's experience there. There's enough youth that if you put him next to some of the other players that are there, I think they're going to make themselves better in that midfield. And let's be honest, that midfield has been a problem since the departure of Frankie Amaya, since the team was left in a really bad spot with his sudden departure. Carballo was a fix that they had hoped would be permanent. It wasn't. So now they got to go back into the market and fill that hole yet again.
Is Amaya tied to a club now, or no? He's just...
He might be back in MLS. I'm not sure. I know that he was leaving, I think it was Toluca where he was, but I don't know for sure. But let's be real. He ain't coming back here.
No.
He's at LAFC.
No. They blew. I don't understand this kid. I don't get it. I mean, they basically blew that. So moving on. Last we heard about Timo Werner, there was a contract negotiation. I'm just going to leave it at that. Manager, and his manager wants more money. More money. Red Bull saying, "Look, I don't think he's quite worth it. You have to show me if he actually is worth that money." I mean, this is the part that I generally hate, where even our own members, guys, they always post these these damn things where, especially when they have to see the word breaking in front of it. But from what we heard from sources, not much has moved since then, and I'm gonna go with that. Okay. Suppose this guy finally put pen to paper, Anthony. Just what? I mean, my number one question with this guy, and I know you got a smirk on your face. What kind of Timo Werner are they actually going to get? The one when he was lights out with Red Bull Leipzig, or the one that he was slumming and bumming with your club, Lanre, Chelsea, and then finally over in... Huh?
Won the Champions League with us.
He won the Champions League, but...
Matt Turner won an FA Cup, but he didn't see any minutes.
I mean, he won the championship, but what did he do? I mean, your people are singing songs against this kid. I mean, they're like, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" But honestly, at a perpetual level, how good is this guy? I mean, is he going to make this team better, or he's the second coming of the player we don't want to mention his name because we don't want what's the name coming after us?
You guys, you can mention on that one.
One of them was a Polish striker.
Oh goodness! Not gonna go there.
Yeah, we're not gonna go there because I don't want him coming after us. Don't mention his name. Don't mention his name. I don't want him going after us. But seriously, just how good is this guy? I mean, is he worth it?
if you're getting the 2019 version of Timo Werner, the one that like wowed everybody in the Bundesliga, it's great. He can float between being a striker and being a winger, very similar to Cam Harper. Does not have the defensive shots that Cam Harper had, so you kind of need to cover for the fact that, I mean, he's not like Lionel Messi bad at defense. Like he's not gonna lightly walk back, but you know, he gives you a lot of speed. He does have some pretty good accuracy. He's you can move him between the winger role or striker role, so that does give them a little bit of depth there. But he's got to stay healthy, which is a big problem, and he really needs his confidence because it hasn't been there. It hasn't been there since the Chelsea days. It wasn't there when he came back in 2023 to Leipzig, and it wasn't there in his multiple loans to Tottenham. So it's really about trying to get him going and use what assets are there for the betterment of the team. So it's not a surefire bet, but everything is there talent-wise to say if they can unlock him, it's if they get him first off, that it'll be a positive.
Okay, and we'll just simply leave that there. Like I said, we haven't any word what was going on. The negotiations are still going on. When we know, we'll let you know. Until then,
there is another element to
go ahead.
this. And I don't know if the new signing. So the last time I checked, and this was right around the time that, again, the midfielder signing is not technically official yet, but you know. There was one international roster spot left. I don't know if that's after this signing of the Swedish midfielder or before. If it's before, there are no international spots, and they need to make a move to get an open one in order to get Timo Werner in. So my feeling is if that spot isn't open, it's not happening this year, and it's probably going to wait until January to happen.
Fine.
Oh, no. Oh, God.
Fine. I mean, this is what I mean. You know what? I'm thinking along the lines, Anthony. If Harper didn't get himself injured, this didn't happen.
Yeah, this would not be an issue if
this would not be an issue
if Harper and Lewis Morgan are not injured long term. This is, you know, and I know Lewis Morgan's back pretty soon, but he's been out for a good chunk of the year. This isn't an issue, and they're not looking for someone to fill this role out.
Right. So that's where it is. This is what happens when you have long-term injuries, and then long-term injuries to impact players like those two. I mean, you need them. I mean, the offense doesn't run without them. So our next topic, of course, which is, of course, the United States, they lost in the Gold Cup final to Mexico, but it wasn't without controversy, unfortunately. And this is the play that everyone is screaming about. And I have to ask, I mean, the question that is around not only in the discussion group for everybody else, is this a handball or nah? Because this is the thing that, you know, at the time when the game was tied 1-1, you all know what happened after that. Not too long later, header into the net by Mexico, and that's all she wrote. Mexico 2, United States 1. But before we go any further, you know, a lot of people have been asking me, what is a handball offense in soccer? Well, okay. Handball offense is committed when a player, except for the goalkeeper in the own penalty area, deliberately touches the ball with her hand or arm. Touches the ball with a hand or arm when it's a position that makes the body unnaturally bigger, and that position is not the result of the body moving fairly as a part of play. Scores a goal against the other team with the hand and arm, and scores immediately after the ball has been touched with the hand or arm, even if the touch was accidental. That's also in parentheses. But when it is not an offense in football or soccer, well, it's not committed when a player heads, kicks, or plays the ball with another part of their body and then hits it with their own hand or arm, unless the ball goes directly into the opponent's goal, whether the player scores immediately afterwards. Now, that did not happen. As you can see from the very photo right here, all he did was fall on it, and he basically stopped it in motion. The ball was actually rolling toward him, and whether or not it was going to be cleared away by the defense or any case, but he just stopped it in motion. Now, that's where everyone is basically crying foul, including the head coach, who said, and I quote, "If this play took place on the other end of the field, it would have been a PK. I don't know if he was right about that or wrong, but that's not why the United States lost the game. So I'll ask all three of you. Okay, it's a handball or nah?
Yeah.
Garry, I mean, I don't know what to say about it. There are rules.
Handball or nah?
We were talking. No, but we were talking about it before the show, and I guess you could call it inadvertent, right? I mean, I guess, and it's not like the ball was traveling towards the goal. Okay.
Nope. He
So
was rolling around.
I don't have an answer. Is it a PK? I don't know. I would like the opinion of Anthony. Okay.
Yeah. So
in regards to this, yeah.
So the reason why I say it is a PK. So if he falls on the ball, puts a hand on it, and the play kind of pitters out to whatever it would have been, I don't think I would have I would have said okay. I wouldn't have agreed with the call, but I would have understood it a little bit more. The issue is he does fall in a natural motion, does stop the ball, but then he gets up and plays it. And so that's because it gave the defense an advantage in the box.
Right.
I think it's a PK. So I think that's the part that is confusing in the explanation, because it worked to the advantage of the defense. So it's not like the handball was just there and then, go on about your business, which we've seen a million times. And we've seen it called a million times a PK. In a scenario like that. I don't like Mauricio Pochettino's if it would have happened the other way argument, because that doesn't really solve any problems. It just makes for bad discussion, really. The truth is it was a bad interpretation of the law. And I always say this, the big comparison, right? Hockey referees versus soccer referees. Soccer referees interpret the law. Hockey referees enforce the law.
Enforce the law.
So that's the thing. And so we end up in these debates of the interpretation of the handball rule as opposed to the enforcement of it. And that's what makes these moments so incredibly frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people will come at me and say, hey, we were robbed, blah, blah, blah. But, I watched the entire game, and I saw one team that was much better than the United States. And although they scored a goal early in, they skated, which frustrated the living daylights out of me. I'm like, okay, you're playing an opponent that can somewhat run circles around you, and they did just that in the second half because they didn't panic. They said, okay, so they got a lead. Let's just make sure we get a lead back. And they were passing the ball around, making the United States the ball is chase. That sickened me. And it's almost like I knew what was coming, Anthony, right? It's like, okay, second, first goal's coming any minute now, and just like that, they scored. They scored the first one to tie the game, and they scored on the header. When you gave this team so many chances to win on a set piece. What was it? 9 corner kicks.
Yeah.
After so many turnovers.
There's one big takeaway from this I want to say, and Raul Jimenez is the main takeaway. 34 years old. Premier League player, a guy who, and I don't mean this as a joke for those that know, literally got his brain scrambled a few years back, and had to have a major comeback. Yet 20-something-year-old Christian Pulisic needs a summer off.
So,
like I'm just for real here. Raul Jimenez dragged himself onto that field for his country for the Gold Cup.
But the Trump merchant he just won't turn up, will he?
I mean,
there were 9 World Cup starters for Mexico on that.
My
field.
problem is, why the hell are you running this tournament every 2 years when you should be running it every 4,
well,
like everybody else?
So if you want to change it to 4 now, it makes sense. The reason why it was done that way before is because the Confederations Cup existed, and the idea was that the 2 winners of the 2 Gold Cups would play, and then you would go to the Confederations Cup. Confederations Cup is gone now, so there is a question to be raised: is do you go to that 4 years? But the reason why it was done that way before was for that. The Nations League kind of got rid of all
Correct.
of that. But the problem is the Nations League winners are not playing each other. So that's why the U.S. isn't playing so many European teams anymore.
Crazy.
Cavarius comes in debt for damn near a decade. The last one was in 2017, right before the World Cup in Russia.
And it was a good one, too.
Yeah, that's when the Nations League started.
And it was a good one. I mean, it was supposed to be the warm-up, the traditional warm-up to the World Cup. You know, you got your Confederations champions and you got your occasional, your host, whoever's hosting, you know, and have at it and, you know, and just simply enjoy. It was pretty good footy. And until they just simply took it away. Sometimes I wonder, by playing it twice a year, you know, every 2 years, makes me wonder, okay, just how greedy CONCACAF is. I mean, how greedy are you bastards? I mean, come on.
Well, I'll tell you, like, Nicholas asked the question, why is the Gold Cup only in the U.S.? I think it's because they make the most money hosting it in the
Every team
U.S.
makes more money.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
There you
Mexico makes more money by playing friendlies in the United States than in Mexico.
than in Mexico.
Right.
That's a fact. That's a fact. That is a straight up fact.
That makes sense. But it's fucking crazy.
You know, but that's a that's a straight up fact. I mean, makes you wonder. Like, okay, are you guys scared to play in your home country? No, we just want to make more. We make more dinero. So that's basically it. Last piece of business, and of course, remember New York Red Bull 2, how high flying they were to right now. You know, they're in first place, and of course, they're still in first place. They got a brand new coach, of course, the son of Mr. Bradley, the coach. So Michael Bradley's doing quite well. You know what happened, guys, this weekend? They lost. Finally! They actually lost. Final score, you know, they played, of course, Huntsville City FC, and they lost by a score of 2-1. Mosquera was the only goal. Studenhoff, 72nd minute, and then Carlton in the 83rd basically stung them. And that basically, now the good news is Red Bull 2 is still playing basically, you know, it's still in first for now. Their next home game, if I'm not mistaken, looking at their schedule, hang on for one moment.
I think it's the mini derby, right?
Oh yeah, again, in which you and I are going to probably see that game. Oops, there it is. Yep, it's the mini derby once again. And they're playing TFC 2 pretty soon. So imagine that. Michael Bradley is going to coach against a team that helped them win championships. More on that later. So let's talk about predictions, boys. Wednesday night, Saturday night. So let's focus on Wednesday night. Who do you got? Is it heroic or heartbreak? Miguel, you up first.
I mean, I would have to go with heartbreak on Wednesday, just because they're going away to Philly. They're a better team than us this year, and that's another thing. Hopefully they have all the main guys. You know, like Chupo didn't start this past game. Hopefully he's starting this game coming up. Okay, but then again, Gary, on the weekend they have to play Philly again in MLS action. Okay, so does the coach weigh that and say, "Oh, the MLS game is more important"? No. I don't know. Okay,
we spoke to him earlier. Anthony and I spoke to him earlier today. He is all in on Wednesday.
Hopefully they go for it, and hopefully they prove me wrong with a massive victory. Okay,
well, let's see what happens. Anthony, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't even predict what's going to happen Saturday, but I will say that the Open Cup game, I think the Red Bulls win this one 2-1. I do think they'll give up a goal, but I think that they're gonna grind it out. I think they've got enough. I'm not saying that that's going to happen in 90 minutes. It might go to extra time, but I do think they'll be able to pull this one out.
I'll take PKs, Anthony. Okay, there you go. So,
Lanre, you're up, man.
3-2 Red Bulls win.
3-2.
Yeah.
It's going to be a shootout
Yeah.
against that Philly defense.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes. Everybody has a bad day.
Okay.
Everybody has a bad day, no matter who you are.
I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw after 90 minutes. Red Bull score that goal in extra time. That's the best result I have. The worst result, it goes 1-1 after 90 minutes. It gets bogged down, and penalty kicks, we go. We go out of there, hopefully, on a squeaker. Somebody's going to miss, someone's going to hit, but I think we get out of there in penalty kicks. There's something about this team that I like. The way that ever since Schwartz has coached this team, they play different in competitions like this. Okay, and people don't notice that. I mean, during the regular season, we yell, we chirp, we mad. We get mad as hell. But in competitions when it's live or die. I mean, maybe he's done this in competitions, over in Europe, where he has gotten clubs that have no business winning in competitions. They won. I sometimes wonder, okay, does he coach different? Does he motivate the guys somewhat different? And that's why I asked, Peter Stroud, hey, does it get old for you? Because I know he's played in a lot of competitions during his career. But what is it different with him and this crew? It seems that Anthony, they switch it on, all that. And that's nice to, that's great to see, where you've said it before, time and time and time again. This is a team that is very tough to beat. You don't see these guys get run out the gym except when you're facing Inter Miami. But other clubs, it's a rock fight with this Red Bull side. You agree?
Yeah, I mean, look, this team is very, very good in knockout games. I've said it before. So, they got to the final grinding these things out. They didn't care about possession. I know that it's always a discussion about like, oh, how do you control the game? They don't care in these games. They care about the final result. And so far in knockout games, other than the game in LA where they had an extenuating circumstance to start it, they've been able to pull out wins. So I expect them to continue doing that until they prove me wrong.
All right, we'll see what happens from there. And of course, naturally, if you hear that wonderful music that tells us we have officially run out of the show, this is episode 150 of the New York Red Bulls Discussion Group, the podcast. First things first, before we even go, we want to thank, all of you guys, all of our listeners, for this greatest achievement. But before we disappear, Lanre, I'm going to give the floor to you, brother. We lost the dearly departed baller, and my man right here has some very choice, some very nice words. Go ahead, Lanre.
Okay. So, football community lost two amazing sons, two amazing brothers, two amazing ballers. There are really hardly any words to describe the enormity of the losses of both the Liverpool and Portugal international forward, Diogo Jota, as well as his younger brother, Andre Silva, who, by the way, is not the one from RB Leipzig. Other club.
The other guy, right.
Yeah, the other guy, his brother. Diogo Jota was someone who we saw on our TV screens week in, week out, like every weekend for about 7 or so years now. I think since he first got promoted to the Premier League with Wolves, after being on loan there, when they were in the Championship, and then he got promoted with them, signed a permanent deal, played there for 2 years, balled out there. Then got his big move to Liverpool. I was really jealous that Jurgen Klopp got to him, because I knew that they were going to work wonders with him, and they really did. He scored 65 goals in about 182 appearances across all competition for them. And surely, that total would have been way more if not for injuries, of course. But just a horrible, horrible, horrible situation. Even if you hated him. Even if you hated seeing him score against the club, I know I hated him. I know I hated seeing him score against Chelsea. He had no choice but to respect Diogo, who he was, the way he played. He just played the game the right way, just approaching with enthusiasm and just complete love and just effervescent joy that was so obvious in the way he played, the way he conducted himself, and just reading all the tributes about him, seeing all the videos about him, who he was off the pitch, his quirks, his love for FIFA 21, his celebrations, and just who he was, and he married his long-term partner Ruth Cardoso just about 11 days before the accident. He had 3 young, beautiful children, and now they're without their father. Ruth is widowed just 2 weeks after being married. all angles
that
of this
hurts.
tragedy
I mean,
on
damn.
fucking, excuse my language. It's just really unreal. And then both the parents, Joachim and Isabel, they lost both their sons, both their children. That's it. And and just think about it from a human standpoint is already sticking enough. And then on top of that, and I think it's okay to think about it this way, is that this is a Liverpool player in his prime who's just gone. There's so many different angles to look at it, and each one is just it just adds to the stress, the really sick feeling you get in your stomach. And he was only 28 years old. He was the same age as me. It's never nice to see your birth year on an obituary. It just it just goes to show you that life is just really really fragile. And my thoughts, prayers, my heart goes out to everyone affected by this tragedy. Obviously his family, his friends, and his teammates, former and current, and of course all the Liverpool fans up there. I have several Liverpool fan friends that I've been talking to, in the 4 or so days since the tragedy, and I don't want to imagine the feeling. It's truly, truly horrible. And God bless the souls of both Diogo Jota and Andre Silva, and may their memories be blessings forever. What a terrible, terrible tragedy that is.
Thank you, Lanre.
Just tell the people you love in your life that you love them, because you never know when the last chance you're going to get to say them.
Yeah. Fantastic words, sir. Much really appreciated. Of course, as always, if you have any questions, or of course when they're able to engage with the podcast, we have of course the email address is always rbdgthepodcast@gmail.com. As far as the rules that I mentioned today, there is a specific site for those of you guys who like soccer. Guess what? Footballrules.com is the site. And one of the things I like about this, Anthony, they really simplify this, okay? All you have to do is type in the infraction, and then there it is. It explains everything black and white for you to read and understand. To love the game, you must understand the game, and so on. So we will be back next week, of course. Our good, we have, of course, Lanre and Miguel are going to take, of course, a week off. And, of course, we have the coach, which is, Mark Coates, and, of course, the wizard, Nicholas Lianos. Hopefully, we won't have a light that's going to attack me this time. That's been doing about 9 times. We apologize for the technical issues. Well, believe it or not, the reason why it probably fell off the standing because it is a little bit humid here. If I had the air conditioning on, then it wouldn't stay placed. But as always, we will see you on Monday, and of course, we'll be talking about both Philadelphia Union games and everything else. You can catch Anthony Merced at ajmsportsfc.com. I will be there, the rest of the entire crew. Of course, not only the New York Red Bulls, but Gotham FC, and of course, NYCFC, which last I checked, they're unveiling a mascot. Kind of. I mean,
they're flying a pigeon over the Hudson.
So basically, if you want a rat with wings, that's basically your mascot.
Oh, one more thing. Go ahead. More thing. The fact you mentioned the pigeon rat. Matt Freese cost us the Gold Cup.
Okay. We knew you was going to do this. Somehow I knew you were going to do this.
Current, past, former, never again. He cost us the Gold Cup. I knew he was a bum.
Well, Garry, you know what? In regards to that point, I wondered why, if he didn't use our other goalkeeper, Matt Turner. Okay.
Good question. That's something I'm sure that has been. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us and being with us in this last hour. Please enjoy the rest of your week. We will see you next Monday. Until then, good night and goodbye.